good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Range Report. With the relaxation of restrictions, we've come on the road and we're shooting some stories around the state. And we're here in Orange tonight. I'm joined by Noel Harrod. A little bit of a catch-up. We've got some great stories coming up in tonight's show.
It's good, Mike, and it is great to be back on the road. Eventually to be able to get outside the borders of ACT has been nice. It's a pretty small place to drive around, so it's been very good, yeah.
So Noel, one of the things we're doing is making a bit of a return to shooting, welcome back, and an advert as a recruitment video. And we've captured two of our Olympic medalists, Paddy Dench and Anne-Marie Forder. Of course, Paddy is the first person to win a shooting medal for Australia.
Yes, absolutely. Los Angeles, 1984. Of all disciplines, shotgun, rifle and pistol.
We've got Peter Bruce and Sherry Blake, both world champions in their disciplines, action pistol and WA 1500.
Very proud of both of them, yeah. It's very, very lucky to have two world champions at the moment in two different disciplines.
And of course, Big Dan Repicoli, Commonwealth champion, 4-time Olympian, about to be a 5-time Olympian.
As you know, Mike, there's very few people in any country that become 5-time Olympians or better. That's a pretty amazing performance. And a gold medalist from Brisbane. Yeah,
there's only 7 Australians that have been to 5 Olympics or more, and Daniel will be the 8th.
It's pretty special.
Very special. Chris Pitt, our Rio Paralympian, he's going to be on board as well. And one of our young shooters, Ellie, and the Moore family.
Yep, covering off all the disciplines. There's somebody from everywhere at the moment, so it's fantastic, yeah.
So keep an eye out, that's coming. We're shooting that over the next few days. We're up here at Orange now. We've done a great story also on Red Centre Projectiles, which is coming up a little bit later in the show. But Noel, why don't you take us through what else is happening for the rest of 2020 leading into 2021?
We've got a lot on. The video is obviously our major project at the moment. The video will be a 30-second video aimed at getting people back to the range, but also as far as recruitment. So it's going to be in 3 versions to help all different levels of clubs and states. There'll be a TV broadcast version that can be used on television, community television, or the mainstream channels. There'll also be a slide version, which is very similar to what's used in the Northern Territory on their ads there. And there'll be a voiceover, so the local club can use that in their local community radio.
And we're going to tailor it for each individual state, and we'll also tailor it for individual clubs. If they want to put it up on their own town, they've got their own TV station or radio station, we will tailor the ad and the recruitment video to suit you.
And that's the most important thing. We've got to make sure we can actually get each club and each state to identify with their local people. I think the National Cabinet's proven that whilst there is national organisations and national governments, it's really state-based and council-based. That's really where it's at. So we've got to have it flexible enough so they can use it for them. Not to just have the national logo there, but it's the local club, it's for them.
And a bit of a catch up on events. I know we've had some cancellations, obviously due to COVID and moving of events back to later dates. Where are we at with some of those?
Well, as you'd be aware, 2020 has been cancelled. And in hindsight, it was a good decision. I'm glad we did it early now. We were a bit concerned at the time. We were thinking, and there was some thought out there that we should wait. However, when you look at what's happening at the moment, although the restrictions are coming off slowly, they are very slow and the borders aren't opening regardless. So I'm glad we've done that. 2021 is going to be a great year. Action Pistol World Championships, the PAISSF Nationals up in Brisbane, which will be great. Olympic year, electronic targets for the ISSF shooters. And the other events throughout the year, the metallic silhouette, the action pistol will be at Yarra. It's going to be a great year. It's going to be an absolutely great year.
Well, it's really important that we get level playing fields with some of the states allow or not allowing travel. So a bit of restrictions there, trying to get into a state or get out of a state and isolate when you come back. But what it has opened the door is we're looking at maybe covering some state championships.
Absolutely. Within our budget was to cover all the national championships, obviously. However, because we've got a bit of room, we've decided to try and become a bit more local. Towards the end of the year, when the state championships start, October, November, December, we'll be covering those. In there filming, doing interviews, talking to grassroots people, talking to the people who make our sport.
Well, that's great, Noel, and we did a story on reloading the other day. We've just finished a story on Red Centre Projectiles. We've got some other ones coming up as well, haven't we? We really want to feature the people that really do some great things in our sport.
Most certainly. We've got Potter Firearms coming up and a number of others as well. Black Widow Projectiles as well, and there'll be a lot more in the future.
Yeah, really trying to highlight the people within the community who provide and supply our pistol shooters. Well, Noel, one of the things about the relaxation of restrictions is each state is going to have different rules and regulations. So we want to just stress to people that you've got to follow your local guidelines.
Oh, it's very important. Clearly, the whole country has different areas, not just different states and territories, but different regions that are coming off at different times. It's really important our clubs stick to the rules, stick to what their state and their local firearms registry and their territory and state police departments tell them what they should be doing. They should be liaising with their state bodies and their territory bodies to find out what's going on. Make sure you look after yourselves, make sure you stay safe, hand sanitizer everywhere, keep the distances. It'd be too easy for us to think it's over because we're in a bubble in Australia. Look at the rest of the world. We're very fortunate and we need to stay there. Some places, even the air pistol ranges are open, which is fantastic, but we've got to be careful. The last thing we need is to go back to where we were.
Yeah, Australia's done a great job of flattening the curve here on the COVID crisis. We're coming out of restrictions, but let's do it carefully and safely, and let's just get back to the range and have some fun.
Absolutely.
It's going to be great, Noel. And well, folks, coming up, a fantastic story on Red Centre Projectiles. Range report on the road here in Orange with Dean Bruce from Red Centre Projectiles. It's a bit cold and wet outside. I think winter's arrived today. It's raining quite heavily. I'm sure we can hear in the background.
Absolutely, yeah, and a bit of snow predicted tonight, Westy, so long John's weather in Orange this time of the year.
Yeah, so part of your business empire, you do lots of different things, but one of them is Red Centre Projectiles. Now this is about producing very accurate projectiles for your match, WA 1500, and for Peter, he's a world champion, and for many other shooters as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We certainly, Pete and I have been shooting at the pointy end of the game for a while, and we've been making our own projectiles for some time with a manual casting machine, and we decided that it was time to progress into the automated machines and try and aim for the top end of the market and produce a projectile that's going to deliver the goods, and that's what got us into it.
So most of the shooters that are shooting at this level reload their own ammunition. So you need a good projectile, you need a good casing, you need the good powder and the primers and everything together. It's all part of the process of being accurate and getting those good scores?
Yeah, absolutely. It's too expensive to be just factory buying loaded rounds, and you know, we all know that it's not the cheapest sport, but it's certainly it can be affordable, and everyone does reload their own, and yeah, it's a whole process to be able to make a round that's going to deliver a nice accurate shot.
Different shapes, sizes. What's the purpose here? Is that about what you're shooting, what match you're shooting?
Yeah, it varies. It's sometimes the match dictates exactly what size projectile. Some matches specify a particular shape and weight of the projectile, and particularly in 1500. And then of course it's up to individual choice. Some people like to shoot a 100 grain projectile through their revolver, and others like to shoot 115 grain. So it really is down to the individual as well.
So you're producing a number of different sizes based on the barrel, and that's going to vary. It can be the same gun come off the same production line, barrel for barrel next to each other, and they're going to be slightly different?
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of potential there for variation. Everything now is CNC machined in the gun world, and it's mind-blowing actually when you get down to the nitty-gritty and do the testing that sometimes 1 or 2 thou can make quite a difference on the target out of exactly the same type of gun.
So when the projectile exits out the end of the barrel, what's it actually doing? Is it travelling straight? Is it spiralling? It's certainly not going to spin.
No, it certainly needs to spiral to stay accurate. So that's to do with the twist rate in the barrel. That's also a personal choice. The twist rates vary from 1 in 10 right up to 1 in 24. It seems to be the most popular for the autos these days. And that's a correlation between the projectile shape and weight and the velocity that the bullet's exiting the gun. So it's staying nice and accurate.
So the projectile's made out of lead. It's coated, obviously for safety reasons for lead. Are there other products you can use besides lead? I mean, have you tried or practiced with anything else?
No. In Australia, most of the ranges are lead projectile ranges certified through the firearms registry. There is some ranges that allow a copper coating. That's still over the top of a lead projectile though. And also a copper wash is also another thing that's growing. But the military and the police are into those style of things, and some of the action shooters, but we haven't ventured down that path as yet.
What's your production at the moment? Obviously you're growing the business. How many projectiles a year would you produce?
We've just toppled over the 1 million projectile mark over the last couple of years, and we've only been slowly growing. Both my sons and I are partners in the business, and we're just at the stage now of wanting to expand.
Yeah, you've got another, I think, a lead smelting machine coming along. You're talking about building a shed. We're in part of your farm here, but you're going to build another shed. You're going to actually build a production area for Red Centre Projectiles?
Yeah, we're going to build a facility that's specifically for the casting and sizing of projectiles and packaging, and ease of access for our customers that turn up to pick up their goods. And yeah, we're looking forward to it. It's certainly it's in the development stage now, and we'll go through the council DA process and make it happen in the next 6 months.
Yeah, so we've got some of the equipment behind us we're going to have a look at shortly. Starts off lead. Particular quality of lead?
Yeah, we always buy virgin lead direct from the two wholesalers in Australia. It's a blend, it's a proper casting blend, and so it starts off the best product we can buy, and then it goes through the casting machine, whatever moulds we're using, off to the scrutineering table, have a look over them, coating and then sizing at the customer's requirement.
Your mould, the quality of your mould must be very important at the starting point to get a really good projectile, good round shape, all even all the way around?
Yeah, absolutely. Once a mould starts to wear, it's out the gate. It's there's no recovery. So if we want to pride ourselves on quality, we've got to make sure that we've got the moulds and the products that are making the projectiles top shelf.
And so you said it goes to the sorting table. So you're going to do a manual check there of what's just been produced out of the smelter, and what happens from that point?
Well, we're fortunate that we have no waste products, so if there is something that hasn't met the criteria, it can just go straight back in the pot, so we don't have no hesitation on being pretty hard with our scrutineering process. And then it's off to be recoated, and it's a cook-on process, so it goes through the oven a couple of times, and then returned and goes through the resizing machine.
So the coating is obviously there to stop fingers, hands touching lead and getting lead contamination. But a double purpose there, it's also a bit of a lubricant and a bit of a seal for the projectile?
Well, its primary role is to lube. Each time the bullet exits or goes through the barrel, it's lubing the barrel. And yes, it does offer some protection there for you not directly handling lead with your skin.
Okay, so let's go back to shapes again. Some of them have grooves. Is this aerodynamics? And some have a pointier nose or a flatter nose?
Yeah, it's quite amazing. The variation and the mould range that's out there is almost endless. People are designing and inventing things all the time. As I said, Pete and I were manually casting projectiles many years ago. We trialled various things. What was working for us was also quite common around the service pistol 1500 traps, and so we've done a lot of intense testing. I borrowed some moulds and also got some friends to supply me with some projectiles that they were also casting themselves. And after the testing process, we were quite happy with the product that we had. We added one mould to that, and it's pretty intense what goes into trying to decide exactly what mould is the favourite mould. But well, I think the proof's in the pudding. Young Pete certainly demonstrated that the RCP product will do the job at world level.
And there's some proprietary knowledge there. You're not going to let us know what moulds you use and how you go about that process?
No, there's got to be a few secrets, I suppose, but everyone knows that the 100 grain semi-wad cutter is the most popular revolver projectile, and the 115 grain semi-wad cutter is definitely the most popular 38 or 9mm semi-auto projectile.
And this is to get a nice clean hole, so you get a clean, clear for marking for when you're scoring?
Oh yeah, it's more about the accuracy really. I couldn't care less if I shot 150 jagged X's, as long as they're X's. So we're aiming to be able to shoot X's and maintain a group that can shoot an X. And if you've got a round that's delivering that, well, it's flying straight and it's cutting a clean hole. So that's the objective. I mean, these days in 1500, the top shooters, they're splitting not scores, they're splitting X ring counts. So the X, it's a pretty serious factor.
Yeah, so for the people at home that maybe don't know what we're talking about here, you've got the 10 ring in the middle, then you've got the X. So you get a 10, but you get an X in the middle of that. So,
right, yep.
So you can have a count back. You can get 1494 and 111 X's or 110 X's. 111 X's is going to win the match.
That wins the match, yeah. So it's all about the most accurate round. Like, you know, if you can go to the range 100% confident that your round and your equipment's going to do the job, it's up to the driver then, and the best driver wins. But if you haven't gone to the range with the projectile and the load that's going to deliver that X-ring count for you, well, you're not in the game.
And you're preparing your own ammunition, so it comes right back down to the casings you're using, the primers, the grade of grain you're putting in, how you're loading, the crimping, the whole bit, all this is part of the accuracy, and then the projectile itself is the final part.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a package deal, and you've just nailed it. Everything's crucial. So the style of case, the brand, and the cleanliness, and the primer, everything contributes to that delivering of that nice, executing that X basically.
So you're making around 1 million projectiles a year here out of Red Centre Projectiles. Where do you see that growing to?
We'd like to grow to, meet the demand at the moment. The demand's exceeding the suppliers. And I had a round table with the Suns a couple of weeks ago, and we'd like to be able to grow. I don't particularly want to put a number on it. What I'd like to be able to do is be in the position to support a few more shooters. I'd like to try and support a shooter from each state at the pointy end of their game and try and get them to the next level. So if they're the state champion of Northern Territory, I'd like them to try and be the national champion of our country. And if that led to them then being able to represent Australia, well, it'd be nice to be able to be part of that at the grassroots level and help them along the way. That's our goal, to put back into the sport.
For you and Peter, how many shots would you fire a year in training?
We get asked that question a fair bit. It depends whether it's a World Championship year or not.
Yeah. So you're going to peak towards a competition?
Yeah, absolutely. And quite often we'll reach around and dive our hand into the bucket, and the bucket's empty of projectiles, so it's back to the factory. But look, on average, we'd shoot around 30,000 rounds.
Okay, 30,000. That's a lot of reloading.
That's why I've got a sore shoulder. Yeah, that's a lot of reloading.
That's a lot of scrutineering to make sure that every single one of those bullets that you produce is going to be as good as the one before and the one next.
Yeah, some people say to us, oh, is there a special box for the Bruces? No, we just grab a box off the shelf. That's the same one that is for Mike West. So, and I'm very proud to be able to say that, because that's the target of our business, is to make sure we've got the quality. And no point having a special box for us. It's got to be across the board. So I can confidently get any box of projectiles, or quite often people want me to have a shot out of their gun because they're having a problem, and I'll shoot a group down, or Pete will shoot a group down, and they go, okay, that's sorted that. Wasn't the gun problem, it was the driver. So it's just, it's nice to be able to have the quality there and know that you can confidently go to the different individuals and be able to let them shoot the X.
So when did you start doing Red Centre Projectiles? Obviously you've been in the game for a long time. You said you were hand casting. You were probably buying someone else's ammunition initially?
Yeah, I was very, very fortunate as I was coming through as a shooter that I was sponsored by Hawkesbury River Projectiles with their original owner in Sydney, and he made a lovely product, and unfortunately Ken's since passed away, and when that happened the company changed hands, and those shooters that were sponsored by him were no longer sponsored. So that sort of got me involved with projectile making then. I thought, wow, I better start making some now because I'm not getting sponsored. And that's also why our focus is to be able to try and support shooters. We'd like to be in the position, we're nearly there, to be able to sponsor them shooters, as I said previously, because I had a helping hand from a projectile company. It got me to the pointy end of Australian shooting and the world, and I certainly couldn't have done it without Ken's assistance. So that's our focus, is to try and be involved with the development of someone. Obviously Pete's, he's there, he's the world champ, and he's using our product, and he's a part owner of the business. But we want to be able to take it outside of our company and try and share the love. Yeah.
Let's go from the start of the process. You get your virgin lead bars, they come in.
Yep.
Where do we go?
Yep, well, they go straight into the melting pot then of the casting machine. So it's got 2 melting pots. It's got a melt and a pour. And that allows the pour pot to remain at a static temperature. So when you drop a couple of ingots of the virgin lead in, it'll drop the temperature of the melting pot. So these machines are designed so that the pour pot remains fairly constant, which gives you a constant lead temperature then for the pour of the projectile.
Have you looked at an optimum temperature of the lead as you pour? Is that something you've gone that far in the science?
Absolutely, there's a lot of variations, even the ambient temperature. So today, for argument's sake, we've got to up the temperature by another 10 or 15 degrees. So we have a bit of a chart. Orange is very fortunate that we've got 3 lovely seasons of the year, but we do have that cold one we're experiencing today. So yeah, ambient temperature, even that has a variation then of the temperature of the ingot that's going into the casting machine. So we've learned a fair bit over the last 3 years about how to make sure we can keep that lead at the optimum level to give the good pour.
So then it comes out of the pour into, you've got rotating moulds?
Yeah, there's 8 moulds, 8 2-cavity moulds, so the machine rolls around. It can go faster than what we run it at, but once again, we're all about quality, not quantity. So we have the machine running at about 80%, and that gives you a more consistent, accurate projectile.
So it comes out, drops into a bay, and then you said it goes to a sorting table. That's a visual sort, and that's obviously from knowledge and experience. You know what you're looking for, you know what to flick out and put back into the smelter?
Yeah, that's right. So we just call it the scrutineering table, and every projectile cast out of the machine hits that table, on with the better quality glasses, and really go over them quite intensively, straight back into the mould if something's not up to speed. And then we're happy with right to move on to the next process.
They go off then, it's coating, and tell us a little bit about the coating.
The coating starts as a liquid product, and it gets rolled around the projectiles, and then it dries just at ambient temperature. Then it goes through an oven cooking process, so it must be 200 degrees or above, and it must be in there for 10 minutes. And then that cooks on the coating onto the projectile. That process happens 2 to 3 times, and then you've got the end product that's coated with a lube coating, ready then for resizing.
That coating, is that a proprietary coating, or is that something that's manufactured for the general marketplace?
No, it's something that's manufactured for the general marketplace, used all around the world, and it's certainly gaining momentum. Like 20 years ago, most of the projectiles that were manufactured were a lube groove with a wax style lubing, and that's old school technology now that's moved on.
So the resizing, is this one of the most critical parts? Because that's when you're producing the very fine quality, the different size. People all shoot different sizes for different barrels?
Yeah, this is where we're splitting hairs, Mike. So we're now down to the thousandths of an inch, and we've discovered over the years that there is certainly quite big variations in accuracy, even between 1 or 2 thou. So we encourage the guys and girls out there to do some intense testing. Quite often I'll give them a sample bag of a different size than what they've ordered, just so they can test them. A lot of people aren't keen to buy 500 or 1,000 projectiles for a test, so we'll give them 100 projectiles in a bag, test them, and quite often with the knowledge that we've gained over the years, they've done the test, and next time they put an order in, it'll be at that particular test size rather than the bag that they've ordered. So yeah, we size in 4 sizes at the moment, so and we size specific to the customer's request.
So they go into a machine, it's behind us here, roll around, they drop down a chute, and they're going to get squeezed through a mould.
Yeah, they get pushed through a resizing die, yeah, which is a hardened piece of steel that's machined exactly at the thousandth of an inch that's required.
And is that something that lasts a fair while? Do you have to check that from time to time, maybe get the micrometer in it and make sure it's not scored in any way?
No, that's right. We periodically grab a projectile out of the finished product, and we'll either put the verniers or a mic on it just to make sure, and also get the resizing die checked as well. So to date, we can't wear one of them out, but we keep checking. Yeah.
$1 million a year and growing, it's impressive stuff. When you're firing the projectile, it's 1 or 2 thou bigger than the barrel it's going down. So what's the purpose here? It's obviously sealing, so you get the most charge behind it to push it down the barrel, but how do you know what size the barrel is?
Okay, well you can slug a barrel, so you can push a projectile through a barrel, and then you can measure that projectile. So most of the good gunsmiths can do that for you, or you can do it yourself. You put an undercharge in and shoot the undercharge load through that particular gun. Have your mate watching, because it'll generally lob down the range, and go and pick him up, and he'll be unaffected because it hasn't hit a target or hasn't hit the backstop. Yep. And then you can measure that. And yeah, you're right, it does squeeze down 1 or 2 thou. It keeps the gas behind the projectile, but it also gives the projectile nice firm seating on the lands in the barrel, which then gives it good accuracy. Yeah.
And then, as I said, with the spinning motion as it's coming out.
That's right. That's keeping it spinning at a nice constant velocity, both trajectory and the spinning velocity, which equates to accuracy.
And can you modify a projectile that will perform better in certain conditions, like humidity or wind or environment? Are you looking at those sorts of areas?
No, we don't have enough variation or testing equipment to do that, but we certainly test intensively through a ransom rest with variations of projectile size, shape, and also the depth that the projectile is seated into the case, and it is quite amazing.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by that side of it, because obviously there's a lot of science behind why your projectile is accurate, and it's going to be different from everyone operating the gun, but to set it up in a rest and set it up in a scientific environment and fire and test and fire and test,
Yep.
You're collecting a lot of data and you're coming back and looking back at what you're doing and where
right.
that's going.
That's right. I mean, we sell projectiles to the novice shooter that's just joined our sport, and they'll be shooting certainly 100 grainers are the most popular through a revolver. That's where most people start. And we're supplying projectiles to, you know, state and national and to Peter, national champions and world champions. So we have done the testing and the scrutineering that we know that our product can make it to the top. And that's obviously anyone that's manufacturing that sort of product, that's where you're aiming to make sure you've got a product that can do that. We've put the hard work in prior. We've bought the moulds that'll deliver the goods. It's up to us now to make sure we maintain that standard.
Well, I like what you said before, that you can grab any box off the shelf. There's no special box for the Bruce family to go to a World Championship. Every box is good. Every
box is good, and there's definitely there's no getting a special box for the Bruces. Half the time they don't even make the box, they're just straight out of the bucket. so it's it's straight into the reloading room and confident in reloading, and that's what we want our customers to be able to do, just confidently grab the box and reload with confidence.
What points would you give somebody who wants to get into this and start reloading and getting projectiles and getting into the game? Couple of entry-level tips?
Couple of entry-level tips, certainly. Clean brass. Listen to the guy that's getting the results. There's plenty of people out there that are not going to give you the good oil. So don't be frightened to ask questions. Ask the guys that are getting the results. 99 out of 100 times they'll give you the good oil and get you underway. Buy a good quality product, projectile, run with fresh powder, and you can't go wrong.
So buy Red Centre Projectiles and you've got good quality.
Absolutely, yep.
Well, that wraps up another edition of the Range Report. Of course, keep an eye on our social media channels to see what's coming up. This Saturday, no webinar, but we've got the game show coming up next Wednesday. Who's on?
It's the Cane Toads from up north. It's against the Islanders, the Tassie Tigers, and it's going to be a great show. I mean, I know the NRL's bragging they were the first sport back, but I think the Corona Quiz beat them quite frankly.
I think it did too last week. That was a fantastic show. New South Wales taking on NT, and of course NT got the first victory and they go to the top of the table.
Amazing upset. It's the sort of thing the Brumbies do to New South Wales regularly as well. It's just a small state. They have fire in the belly. It's fantastic, and it's going to be a great show. And my money's on Tassie. And no webinar coming up this Saturday, but we've got a very special international ISSF webinar coming up on Saturday week. Yeah, some very famous world-class guests. We won't be releasing their names next week, but you'll be very, very impressed. Current world champions, former world champions, current national team coaches. It's very, very exciting. Well, that wraps up another edition of the Range Report. Mike Westhorpe signing off on behalf of the team. If you like what we're bringing to you, please like and share and follow us on our social media channels. Bye for now.